Hi, this is Shadi, and today I figured we'd do a video Sumo versus Judo technical breakdown. But since Sumo has such a rich history and also being the biggest ancestor to Jujutsu and the grandfather of Judo, I figured it deserves its own video about its history and getting to know it better. And before we go and do a technical breakdown of similar throws and takedowns, so I figured because it had such a lot of evolutionary process during different periods of Japanese history, it deserves its own video. So sumo wrestling literally means striking one another or hitting one another. It is a form of yawara or grappling, and it is done in a ring called the dohyo, which is a ring of 4.55 diameters made out of straws, and the middle is made out of clay and sand. So you win by putting your opponent down. Any part that touches the ground, like knees, hands, anything different from the soles of the feet, you immediately win, or you push them outside of the dohyo or the ring. So it is now considered a national sport, and it has a lot of Shintoism to it, like putting salt in the ring as a purification ritual before the matches. So let's talk about before the Middle Ages, or 1185 in the antiquity. So in the prehistoric days, there were wall paintings that indicate sumo wrestlers doing a ritual dance to please the harvest gods. And in the Kojiki manuscript around 712, so around the Nara period, it describes a very mythical wrestling match between two kamis, or gods, in the Shinto tradition. One god was the ruler of the people, and the other was the ruler of wind, water, and agriculture. And the ruler of the people broke the other kami's arm to get the win and defeating them, becoming the god of all things, or reuniting all the islands of Japan under his rule. So in the Nihon Shoki, or the Japanese manuscript around 720, it's still in the mythical context, but it says that the first match between mortals, sumo match between mortals, was around 23 BC between Nomi and Taima, and it was in front of the emperor in his court. So Nomi broke the ribs of Taima with one kick, and then another kick to the back to kill him. Before the Middle Ages, so Middle Ages are 1185 till 1603, sumo matches were held to the deaths, and there were no regulations. So the first historical match documented historically, not in the mythical traditions or folklore, was around 642 AD in the court of the Empress Kogyoku to entertain a Korean legion or legation. So back then it was a very popular practice in the courts of the emperors, but in the Middle Ages the emperor lost its central authority, and thus sumo lost its importance in the court. But during the Muromachi period, sumo became a very popular practice among the masses, and it was funded by the daimyo. If you don't know, you have first the shogunate, then the daimyo, then the samurai. And the sumotori who fought and won for his daimyo, he was awarded with a lot of money and also became of samurai status. And during the Middle Ages, you have the dohyo, the ring, was created or invented in order to create a separation and safety between the spectators and the wrestlers. So during the Edo period, 1603 till 1867, sumo had a very bad reputation because it was causing a lot of brawls and fights in the streets. So it became banned and only practiced from 1684 and onwards in charity events on temple properties or Shinto shrines. Two locations were Kyoto and Osaka. So if you don't remember from my Jujutsu videos, the Edo period gave surge to Jujutsu, and I believe that Sumo becoming banned was a part of the surge in Jujutsu. And during the Edo period, it became only for charity events on Shinto shrines, so it wasn't like the popular fighting to please the masses like during the Middle Ages. So Jujutsu took its place, and also being so far back, stretching far back, fights to the death, the takedowns, the pushing and the shoving also gave birth to several choreos and Jujutsu that were manifested strongly during the Edo period. And during the Edo period, you had the invention of the Heya system, a little bit like Uchideshi, or someone who lives in the dojo, cleans it and trains, and all he does is live there and train. Also the Gyoji, which is the very fancy referee you see in the ring wearing clothes that reflect the Edo period, and also the Mawashi, which is the very thick belt tied around the waist of the sumotori. I believe it stretches around 16 feet. And also you had the surge of the first historical Yokozuna. Yokozuna are the top tier elite level sumotori. So let's talk about the Meiji Restoration. So the Meiji Restoration, sumotoris lost their sponsors, or their daimyos and their sponsors. So it became looked at as a very backward and savage practice. But Emperor Meiji loved sumo, and he helped it to gain back its popularity and organized a tournament in 1884, and sumo became a national symbol. And very similar to organizations like the Dai Nippon Butokukai and also the Busen, the Kodokan also restored a lot of these, the popularity of these practices like Jujutsu and also Judo. So thanks to the Emperor Meiji and also Kano and the intellectual aspect of Judo and the Dai Nippon Butokukai, which eventually sadly fell out of favor because of its ties with the imperial regime, we still have practices like Sumo, Judo and Jujutsu. So thankfully we still have them. So Sumo, if you see, it has a lot of Shintoism, like I said, the purification methods done by the referee, or the Gyoji, I'm sorry. And also, speaking of Shintoism, women are not allowed to do sumo because they are considered impure due to menstrual blood, which is, in my opinion, just very unfortunate and just absurd and backward. Imagine judokas like Sara Asahina and Akira Sone fighting sumo. They will bring the sumo world to its knees. It's very unfortunate that females cannot compete or even step foot on the ring, like I said, due to them being impure. So you can't even be a gyoji as a female, which is, in my opinion, very unfortunate and absurd. So the sumo divisions, which is something I found very interesting, are not like judo or boxing, etc. It's not like weights, but rather it's due to prestige and skill. So the lowest ranking sumotori is the jonokuchi. Above it you had the jonidan. Above it you had the sandanme, and notice how they have nidan and sandan in the wording. You have above it the makushita, the juryu above it, and the top tier sumo wrestlers are the makuuchi, which is in itself divided into 5 ranks, and among it you have the yokozuna sumotoris, the top tier level sumo wrestlers. So sumo is, as you see, it's a very complex history of banning, coming to the court, and then becoming a samurai art before becoming a sports and a sponsor deal for the daimyo. Yeah, it had to go through a lot between being ridiculed and also becoming popular again, losing its interest in the court, and then becoming a popular practice among the masses. Very similar to judo, if you ask me, in the 20th century. So you see, judo at first was a nobility practice, and then it traveled around the world due to the diaspora, and it still was a nobility practice. And then around the 50s, it became a practice for the masses. So it had this sequences very similar to sumo, but on a worldwide map, and we can see its effects on jujutsu and judo, but being physically far more demanding. But the takedowns, I'm gonna address them in another video, comparing them to judo, where you can see clearly its ties to jujutsu and judo. This video was for the historical piece and trying to introduce everyone to sumo as such a rich history to it. It's not just two fat people pushing each other outside of a ring. There's also takedowns where if you touch anything on the ground, you are immediately eliminated, very much like Bok wrestling or Choi Jiao in China. Any part of the body that touches, you lose. Far more sensitive and crucial than judo, in my opinion. So if you have anything else to add, let me know down below. This was Shadi, and thank you.